Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. Far below the shimmer of sunlight, where the sea turns dark and cold, a sound floats through the water like a memory half remembered. It is long, it is slow, it bends like kelp in the current. This is the voice of a whale, not shouted, not spoken, but sung. A song that has no words, yet speaks of awe, of distance, of some strange longing we can only guess at. But once, long ago, the ocean was sheer, no great songs roamed its halls, no echoes curved back to the singers. And the mammals of the land, who had lungs made for the sky, did not yet know how to breathe underwater, or how to sing beneath it. To understand how this music was born, we must travel back before melodies, before the salts sank into their blood, back to a time when all mammals walked on land. The ancestors of whales lived there too, four-legged, furred, sniffing at the warm wind. They ran through forests and drank from rivers. They knew nothing of coral or current, only soil and sky. But something ancient stirred in them. A whisper of the sea, maybe remembered from before mammals became what they were. Over many millions of years they returned. Not all at once, but slowly, in generations soft as sand. First to the shorelines where the sea lapped at their toes, then into shallow bays, then deeper still. Their noses slid higher, their ears adapted to listen underwater. Their legs melted into flippers, and with these changes came something else, silence. For to dive deep you must hold your breath, and for breath holders speech is a risk. Yet they did not stay silent for long, and the ocean, it turns out, is a good place for sound. Better in some ways than air. In water, a low hum can travel for hundreds of miles. A song becomes a bridge across darkness. But first, the whales had to learn how to make that song. Not with vocal cords, not always, but with folds of tissue near the blowhole, or vibrations deep in the chest, or low rumbles pushed through bone. And why did they sing? Perhaps it was to find each other, to call to a calf drifting too far, to mark a territory, to echo off a distant ridge and hear what returns. Or maybe just because something inside them needed to make the water move, to fill the quiet with something alive. Their songs are strange to our ears. Long, slow, repeating. Like wind through a canyon or a sigh beneath ice. Some whales sing for 20 minutes straight, others for hours, and each one is different. Blue whales, the largest creatures ever to live, sing songs so deep that we can barely hear them. Humpbacks compose complex tunes that change over seasons, like music passed from one pod to another. And still the ocean listens. It is a library of echoes now, every wave a page, every current a whisper, and the whales, those ancient singers, have turned their lungs and bones and salt-filled blood into instruments. We wonder how they know the notes, how a creature without hands can compose a song, how a mind so different from ours can still be moved to make music. Scientists study their sounds. They measure the length and pitch, the timing and form. They map songs across oceans. They even try to sing back. But some things stay mysterious. The full purpose, the deep why. These remain like shadows in blue water. And so we float at the edge of knowing, listening, guessing, dreaming. The whale sings and the ocean remembers. Now imagine drifting deeper, far past the places where light can go. The sea becomes darker, thicker. It presses gently on your ears like velvet, and still the songs continue. Long notes ripple through this twilight world, unseen, but not unfelt. Every wave carries a whisper of someone far away, singing through salt and pressure and time. To understand this language of the deep, we must look closer at how whales use sound. On land, animals use sight to find their way, but in the sea, vision fades quickly. Instead, sound becomes the eyes. Whales echolocate. They send clicks or pulses, wait for the echoes, and build pictures in their minds. A whale can hear the shape of a mountain, the flutter of a squid, the swim of another whale. Sound is not just communication here, it is survival. Humpback whales, with their elaborate songs, show how this language can be more than function. Their melodies change over time, slowly shifting like the seasons. In one year, a pod in the Pacific may be singing one tune, but by the next year they've learned another, passed from distant whales like a tide of sound. No one teaches them, there is no conductor. But still, they adapt, revise and share. It is music as memory, music as migration. Scientists have tried to break these songs down as if reading a code. Each song is built from phrases, and those from smaller units like notes. Some songs have verses that repeat, others rise and fall like breaths. It is a kind of culture, an oceanic tradition passed across generations and miles. In the dark, the song is a signal, a story, a thread of belonging, a way to say, I am here, you're not alone. But it is not just humpbacks. Sperm whales, the deep-diving giants, speak in clicks, rhythmic, powerful, patterned. These codas, as researchers call them, seem to vary by family, almost like accents. A pod in one part of the world clicks differently than one on the other side. This may be identity. It may be memory, it may be something else entirely. There's evidence that young whales practice before they master the full song. Like children humming nonsense before they learn words. There's stumbling, repetition, correction, a kind of play, a kind of learning. The brain of a whale, especially in species that sing, is large and complex. The parts tied to emotion and memory are well developed. Some scientists even believe that whales may feel something like what we call joy when they sing. And where did this come from? Mammals evolved to breathe air, to speak in bursts between breaths. For a whale, every note must be planned. There is no lazy humming. Every call takes air from a single breath, held deep in a chest designed not to crush in pressure. Even the bones are different, spongy, compressible, adapted to dive. And within this machine of adaptation lives a voice, shaped by evolution, stretched by time. Some scientists believe that singing started as a mating call, a song to draw others near. Others think it began as a navigation tool, or a way to coordinate migration. But what matters most is not just why it started, it's that it stayed. The whales never stopped singing. They made the ocean theirs with song, and the ocean in turn became an instrument. Different parts of the sea echo in different ways. In the Arctic, under ice, sound behaves strangely and bending, bouncing. In warm tropical water, songs stretch farther. Whales seem to know this. They sing differently depending on where they are, adjusting pitch and rhythm like a musician tuning to a room. Even the moon plays a role. Its pull on tide shifts how sound moves. Storms above the surface add noise. Ship traffic, sonar, human machines, these are the new disruptions. Some whales must now sing louder to be heard. Some grow silent. The ocean grows crowded, but the whales still try. They find gaps in the noise. They whisper through the static. There's something heartbreaking in this, and something hopeful. For all their size, whales are delicate singers. They trust that someone will hear, that another will answer. And sometimes that answer comes. In recordings, you can hear it. A second whale, far away, responding. Not with the same notes, but with harmony. A conversation that might last hours, or days. In the deep time slows, the songs stretch like dusk across a long shoreline. And above, we listen, we record, we analyse. But perhaps what we're truly doing is wondering what it feels like to live in sound, to sing without needing words, to let the ocean carry your voice farther than your body will ever swim. The whale keeps singing. The song is both ancient and new, and somewhere drifting through the blue, another whale hears and answers. You can almost feel it now, the slow swell of the sea, the hush between notes. Somewhere beneath the surface a song continues. It moves through blue darkness, around ridges and trenches, touching places that have never seen light. This final part of the whale's song is not a performance. It is something quieter, something deeper, a remembering. The ocean holds stories in silence, and the whales, with their singing, unlock those memories, not just their own, but the memories of the earth itself. Every song is a trace of where they've been, who they've travelled with, what they've learnt through water and time. These aren't just patterns in sound, they're impressions left in the body, like footprints in sand too deep for tide to reach. As whales travel, they do more than migrate. They map, not just the geography of the sea, but the paths of memory. Humpbacks return to the same warm bays to give birth. Blue whales cross oceans to feed where their ancestors once fed. The songs they carry may help guide them, though, or guide those who follow. A melody becomes a compass, a rhythm becomes a landmark. They do not need charts, they have the sea inside them. What's most haunting is that we may never fully know what these songs mean. To us, they're echoes and waves, signals to analyse. But for the whales, they might be so much more. Maybe they are histories, maybe they are poems, maybe they are prayers. There's a beauty in that mystery, in the idea that something so large, so powerful, still finds comfort in softness. And perhaps the real lesson isn't about sound at all, it's about connection. Whales live far apart, yet they reach for each other with sound. In a world where everything is moving, the tides, currents, life, the song is what stays. It's what links them. It's how they say, I am part of something greater than myself. Even when a whale swims alone, it sings. Not always to be heard, sometimes just to remember it can. Scientists have begun to understand that whale societies are rich and layered. They have dialects, traditions, bonds that last decades. Mothers raise calves for years. Males form alliances. Pods protect each other. And through all of this, the feeding, the swimming, the births and migrations, the singing continues. There's something tender in that even the largest animals on Earth seek comfort in song, that even creatures shaped by pressure and cold and deep water still sing to say they're here. And now, with the oceans changing, the songs take on new meaning. Human sound, engines, drills, ships, sonar, fills more and more of the sea. It interrupts the quiet. It fragments the songs. In some places, whales grow quieter. In others, they grow louder, straining to be heard across the noise. And still they keep singing. They adjust, they adapt, but the cost is real. And so we listen, not just with instruments, but with responsibility. We are not separate from their story. We share this world of water and breath and memory. The song of the whale is a reminder, not only of who they are, but of who we are becoming. Will we be the noise, or will we be the quiet that lets the song continue? In the end, the ocean does not forget. It holds everything. The old songs, the broken ones, the new ones forming now, and within it, whales drift like ancient notes, still composing. Their voices are older than cities, softer than storms, more lasting than light. And even when we sleep, even when we stop listening, the whales still sing. Not for applause, not for answers, but because the ocean is their home, and song is how they remember it. Far below the waves, where sunlight breaks into threads and vanishes into blue, the ocean holds a quiet unlike any other. It is not empty, it is not still, but it moves with hush, a living silence filled not with nothingness but with potential. This is the silence whales are born into, not the absence of sound, but the space that invites it, a cradle where echo becomes meaning and vibration becomes voice. In this underwater world, sound travels farther than sight, faster than air, clearer than light. A ripple of noise can go for miles. A single low-frequency pulse can stretch across entire ocean basins. What begins as a whisper in one sea may be heard days later in another. And yet all this movement exists in a kind of calm, not chaotic, not crowded, but measured, balanced. This is saltwater silence, a space where music lives not in volume but in shape. Here, whales are not just singers, they are listeners. Before they make a single sound, they spend years surrounded by echoes. A calf begins life in the warm shallows of breeding grounds, close to its mother, feeling rather than hearing the world. Sounds pass not only through the water but through their bones. The vibrations of their mother's tail, the distant boom of waves, the soft brushing of other bodies nearby. All of these are the first notes in a whale's inner symphony. As the calf grows, it learns that silence is never truly silent. There are the distant clicks of dolphins, the calls of other pods, the groans of shifting ice, the hum of the Earth's crust shifting beneath the sea. The ocean is filled with music that has no instruments, rhythm that has no measure. And through this, slow, sensory, endless, the young whale learns to recognize the textures of sound. Not all species hear the same. Toothed whales, like orcas and dolphins, rely heavily on echolocation. They produce a series of rapid clicks and pulses, painting the world in return echoes. They can hear the heartbeat of a fish in the dark. Baleen whales, like humpbacks and blues, hear lower, longer sounds, the deep waves of space-sized songs. Their ears are tuned to distance, to time, to the kind of sound that stretches across lives. Even the ocean floor plays a role in this orchestra. The contours of underwater mountains and trenches bend sound. The temperature of the water shapes it, the saltiness, the currents. A single note is pulled and pressed as it travels, reshaped by the sea itself. And whales somehow understand this. They know when a call will bounce back or vanish. They know when to wait and when to answer. This form of communication, so rich, so layered, can seem alien to us. We rely on sight, on words, on things we can point to. But whales speak in presence, in tone, in pauses. They listen more than they say. They let silence hold the meaning and respond not always with answers, but with acknowledgement. A long moan, a soft warble, a rise, a fall, a shared moment in the deep. Imagine if we spoke like that, with breath, with patience, with sound that asks nothing but to be heard. The saltwater silence is not empty, it is sacred. In it, the whales have built a culture of care. A mother calls her calf gently, guiding it through the dark. A male offers his song not to claim space, but to invite. A pod travels together, not shouting, but humming, checking in, saying, "I am here, I feel you." This is the music beneath the waves. It is not loud. It is not always meant for us, but it continues, slow and certain, in places we will never touch. And though we send our machines to record it and plot the sounds on graphs, something always escapes us, the emotional weight, the hidden meanings, the unspoken bonds. We are only beginning to understand what it means to live in such a world. A place where even silence has texture. A place where sound is not noise but connection. And in that understanding we are invited, not just to listen, but to hear. And beneath it all the whales keep singing, quietly, continuously, patiently, as if the ocean itself is holding its breath to listen. Let's drift deeper now, past the soft veil of the sunlit sea, into the vast cathedral where water becomes shadow and time seems to pause. It is here in this hushed twilight that the real music lives, not the loud bursts or the rhythmic clicks alone, but the layered chorus of memory and instinct, a slow weaving of song and silence, of presence and pulse. This is where whales carry not just sound but meaning, across generations, across oceans, across the stillness between them. To live in this world is to listen in a way we have almost forgotten. Sound here does not come in pieces. It arrives whole, shaped by the water's warmth, bent by pressure, softened by salt. And the whales do not just listen for volume or pitch. They listen for story, for feeling, for the age of a voice, the distance of a call. They know the difference between a greeting and a warning, a stranger and kin. They feel the space around a sound and hear what silence has left behind. Scientists have come to understand that whale communication is not only advanced, it is astonishingly rich. In some whale communities, individual voices are recognized across decades. Calves may remember the vocal patterns of their mothers long after they part. Males return to the same feeding grounds year after year, not guided by maps, but by songs, low, guiding notes that echo through the ocean like ancient beacons. In the southern hemisphere, vast migrations are choreographed not by stars or currents alone, but by collective memory sung from one generation to the next. A mother's song is passed to her calf like a lullaby stitched with survival. Each note holds knowledge, where to go, when to dive, when to rest, when to rise. Among humpbacks, these songs evolve. They are not static signals, but shifting compositions. New melodies emerge in one region and travel like a wave across oceans. Within a few seasons, distant pods will adopt the new tune, adjusting their own versions until the ocean sings with shared variation. No leader decides this, no rule demands it. Yet somehow the whales agree, the new song has arrived and it's a time to sing it. This reveals something profound, not just communication, but culture. A fluid, living culture shaped by sound. And it is not always about necessity. Many of the most intricate whale songs serve no direct survival purpose. They are not warnings, they are not cries, they are in the truest sense music, an offering, a gesture, a reaching out. Why do they do this? Some believe it is for mating. Others say it strengthens bonds. But perhaps there is a deeper reason still. Perhaps like us, they sing because they can, because sound allows them to shape the world around them, because through song they feel less alone, and in their songs there is space for others. We have recorded whales responding to unexpected noises, echoing sonar pings, mimicking boat engines, even miming human voices in captivity. They are curious, they listen, they try to understand, they join the conversation, even when they are the only ones speaking in truth. This openness, this willingness to engage with the world through sound, reflects something we often overlook: empathy. Not as we define it in science books, but as the quiet recognition of another's presence. When a pod slows to match a weaker swimmer, when a mother sings softly to calm her calf, when a male answers a distant voice across the dark, these are not survival instincts alone. They are gestures of care, of connection, of being heard. And the ocean, vast and changing, listens with them. Each decade brings new challenges. The water grows warmer, the ships grow louder, noise pollution spreads across once quiet corridors, and yet the whales adapt. Some change their routes, some raise the pitch of their songs, others wait for moments of calm between the roar, and in those brief silences they continue. In the depths of the Pacific, researchers have discovered something called the SOFAR channel, a deep layer of water where sound can travel farther and faster than anywhere else. Whales seem to know this. They position themselves in this band to sing across entire ocean basins. A single song can move thousands of miles without losing its shape. It is a kind of underwater highway for voice, a hidden bridge between lives. And what do they say across this bridge? Perhaps they say, "I am here." Perhaps they say, "This place is safe." Perhaps they say nothing at all, only offer their sound and wait. But the fact that they sing, that they persist in singing, tells us something. It tells us that even in the deepest waters, even in the farthest places, the need to connect remains, not just to survive, but to share, to be part of a pattern greater than one body, one life, one moment. And so the music beneath the waves continues, shaped by silence, carried by salt, answered by others. It is not only the song of the whales, it is the song of the sea remembering itself. The ocean does not sleep. Even in its stillest hours, when the surface is calm and the moonlight rests upon it like lace, the deep continues to hum. Down below, in caverns of blue and shadow, the music endures. It lingers in long echoes, in soft pulses, in the hush between heartbeats. And within this living silence, the whales still sing. They do not sing for applause. They do not expect to be understood. Their songs are not written or rehearsed. They rise and fall with the rhythm of the sea itself, as if drawn from a memory older than time. Each note, each probable breath, is part of something larger. A tapestry made not of threads, but of vibrations. In these final movements of their story we find the quiet beauty of endurance. Whales have sung through ice ages, through shifting continents, through storms that reshaped coastlines. They have adapted again and again to new waters, new climates, new challenges, and each time they have brought their songs with them, not unchanged, but resilient, elastic, alive. There is grace in this, not the kind found in survival alone, but the grace of creation, of singing into uncertainty, of trusting that sound, once released, will find its way, across currents, across noise, across time. This is not instinct alone. It is something more like faith, not in the way we define it, but in the way a seed trusts the soil, or a wave trusts the shore. The more we learn, the more we begin to understand that whale songs may not be simple signals, but layered expressions. A single note may contain shifts in tone, length, and depth that we cannot yet translate. The complexity rivals that of birdsong and even human language in its structure. But it is not meant to be decoded, not fully. Like poetry, it is meant to be felt. And in that feeling, something soft awakens in us. Perhaps it is memory of the oceans we came from, of the water that still makes up most of our bodies, of the lullabies sung to us in our own beginnings. Or perhaps it is something simpler, a reminder that not all meaning needs to be spoken, that some truths live in tone, in timing, in presence. The whales teach us that silence is not absence. It is space, space for thought, for connection, for song. They sing in duets, in call and response, in choruses that drift across the sea like constellations drawn in sound. Sometimes two whales will mirror each other, their notes rising and falling in perfect echo, as if they are shaping the same thought. Other times, one sings alone, carving a long, solitary path through the dark. But even then, the ocean listens. The song is received. There is a story of a humpback who was recorded singing with no nearby companions. His song, rich and clear, continued for weeks, not seeking response but offering presence. Scientists called him lonely, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was doing what whales do best, filling silence with beauty, turning solitude into song. As we chart the waters and map the migrations, we begin to see how songs travel. A tune born near Australia may, within years, be sung off the coast of South America. The pattern changes, echoes, merges with others, becomes something new, and yet traces remain, fragments of old songs stitched into the new, memory carried not in blood but in breath. This continuity, this soft persistence, is part of what makes the music so moving. It is not bound to one place or one time. It flows, it grows, it adapts, and through it, whales build invisible bridges, not just between each other, but between the past and the present, between knowing and wonder, and we, above, are changed by it. Even without fully understanding the language, we are drawn in. The songs slow our thoughts, they ease our breathing. They remind us that there is life moving patiently beneath us, ancient, aware, singing. In an age of speed and noise, the whale's slow voice is a form of wisdom. It tells us, breathe deeply, beg gently, leave space. And now, as the ocean faces new challenges, warming waters, shrinking habitats, human interference, the songs carry another role. They remind us of what still exists, what is still worth protecting, what has endured despite all odds. We do not need to speak their language to honour it. We only need to listen. And when we do, something opens. A quiet understanding, a shared reverence, a moment of stillness that stretches like a whale song across the waters of our own lives. For even when the music is distant, even when it fades into the depths, it never truly ends. The song lives on in currents and caverns, in memory and motion. And long after we stop listening, the whales will keep singing, not for us, but because that is what they do. They are the ocean's voice, and the silence they leave behind is never empty. Before the song, before the dive, before the first echo glides through the water, there is breath. A single sweeping inhale taken at the surface where sea meets sky. This breath is not rushed. It is wide, whole, almost sacred. A slow expansion of rib and lung, of bone and blood. And it is this, not their songs, not their sighs, that makes whales what they are. Breath carriers in a breathless world, air holders in a liquid realm, creatures of the sea who never stop needing the sky. Whales are mammals. They do not have gills. They do not filter oxygen through water like fish. Every breath they take must come from above, a deliberate rise to the surface, a break in the surface tension, a soft release of mist. The blowhole, sitting at the crown of their head like a secret, opens. A column of vapour erupts. Then the lungs refill and the ocean reclaims them. It's easy to forget how remarkable this is. Every dive is a decision. Every descent begins with a single perfect breath. From that moment onward, the whale is holding, trusting, measuring. A blue whale, the largest animal to ever live, can dive for over 30 minutes on a single breath. A sperm whale can hold its breath for over 90 minutes, diving thousands of meters into the dark, where the pressure would crush most life. But whales do not rush. They descend slowly, deliberately, in spirals and sweeps. They fall like leaves, not like stones. Inside their bodies, the breath is cradled. Whale lungs are not like ours. They collapse under pressure, not from weakness, but from design. Their ribs flex inward. Their chest compresses. Air is pushed from soft lungs into stiff airways where it cannot be absorbed. This prevents nitrogen from dissolving into their blood, avoiding the dangerous bends that plague human divers. Their blood, meanwhile, is thick with oxygen-carrying molecules, their muscles too, rich with stores that feed them in the silence of the deep. And in the quiet below, where light gives way to dark, they rest in stillness. Their heart slows to a few steady beats per minute. Their body conserves every ounce of energy. Their mind, we imagine, grows quiet too. And when it is time, not from panic, not from urgency, but from rhythm, they begin to rise, slowly, like a thought returning, like a memory surfacing, until the sea parts once more and the breath returns. They never forget to breathe. They cannot. It is not automatic the way it is for us. A whale must choose every breath. Sleep even is different. Half of their brain must stay awake, alert, watchful, while the other sleeps. This way, they never sink too deep, never miss the moment to rise. Even in dreams, they are thinking of air. This balance, between water and wind, between silence and breath, is at the heart of their survival. The ocean may be their home, but the sky is still their anchor. Each time a whale sings, it does so between breaths. Each call is shaped by the air it carries inside, released not with recklessness but with care. And this gives their songs a kind of weight, not just in sound, but in cost. A whale must plan its melodies, must decide how much air can be spent in song, how much must be saved for the return. Their voices, then, are not only expressions of feeling or distance, they are also reflections of breath itself. We forget sometimes how extraordinary this is, that something so vast, so powerful, still relies on something as fragile as air. And yet it is this fragility that gives them grace. The breath between songs is a reminder. Life here is not constant. It is earned. It is chosen. It is lived one breath at a time. Even the calves, newborn and barely buoyant, must learn this lesson quickly. Within minutes of birth, they are guided to the surface by their mothers. There they take their first breaths, sharp, wide, uncertain. From then on, their life is measured in intervals. Breathe, dive, rise, again and again in rhythm with the sea. There is no escaping this need. There is only surrendering to it. And in this surrender, there is beauty. For the whale, breath is not just survival. It is presence. It is rhythm. It is song. Let's dive further into this breath-held world, where each exhale marks a return and each inhale a beginning. Down here, deep in the quiet press of the sea, breath is more than biology. It becomes a rhythm, not just of lungs and blood, but of life itself. In the body of the whale, breath pulses like a tide, guiding when to dive, when to sing, when to surface again. And though it may seem automatic to us, for them, breath is an act of choice, an intentional dialogue with the ocean. Whales have shaped their entire biology around this need. Unlike us, they do not breathe through their mouths. Their blowholes are specialized nostrils, muscular, sealable, tucked high and safe. When a whale surfaces, it doesn't gasp. It exhales forcefully, clearing the passage, then inhales deeply and cleanly. A full exchange of air happens in just seconds, and then, back below, into the hush. Their lungs, compact and elastic, are not the secret to their deep dives. The real magic lies in their blood and muscle. A whale's blood holds far more oxygen per unit than ours, and their muscles are laced with myoglobin, a molecule that binds oxygen and stores it for long journeys underwater. Some whales can store up to 90% of their oxygen in muscle and blood, using their lungs mainly as a passageway. It's as if they carry the breath inside them, folded into their bodies like a slow-burning fire. This is why they do not panic as they dive. There is no rush, no fear. The heart slows. The blood is routed to the brain and essential organs. Digestion pauses. Limbs are cooled. It's a quiet surrender, like sleep without letting go. This ability to hold, to descend peacefully, is not merely physical, it's poetic, a rhythm written into their bones. And through it all, there is trust in the body, in the sea, in the space between breaths. Some whales, like the sperm whale, go deeper than most. They hunt in the dark, chasing squid and shadow, sometimes plunging over 3,000 meters. Down there, light does not exist. Temperatures drop, pressure rises to crushing levels. But the whales do not resist. They adapt, their rib cages fold, their sinuses close, their heartbeat slows to just a few beats per minute. The breath they took minutes ago becomes everything, not just air, but courage. When they return, rising slowly like moonlight through water, they do not race, they rise in spirals, adjusting their lungs gently. Then just before reaching the surface, they slow, they hover, they prepare. And then the blowhole opens. The breath comes, a sharp sound, a burst of mist, and for a moment sky and sea touch again. In these cycles of breath, something beautiful reveals itself. It's not just about oxygen. It's about rhythm, harmony. The whale lives in a loop, between silence and sound, between depth and sky, between holding on and letting go, and this loop is mirrored in their songs. A whale's call is shaped by its breath, its duration, its intensity, its volume. Long, low-frequency notes require a slow, steady release. High bursts need sharp control. The choice of song, then, is shaped by the breath left in the lungs. This means that even their music is rooted in their physical reality. They do not just sing, no, they sculpt sound from the breath they carry. And this makes each song fragile, precious, temporary, because when the breath runs low, the song must pause. But perhaps this is what makes it meaningful, that each note has weight, that each phrase carries the price of oxygen, that even beauty requires balance. Young whales learn this over time. Calves are playful, aware. They leap, spin, roll, but they are also learning how to breathe, how long to hold, how deep to dive. Their mothers guide them, surfacing often. They sing less but listen more. Over years they grow into their breath. Their lungs expand, their dives deepen. Their songs begin. And in these first songs there is practice. There is stumble and repeat. Just like our language, their communication is learned, shaped by listening, adjusted by experience. And underneath it all is the breath, steady, quiet, present. Even sleeping is different here. A whale does not dream the way we do. It rests half its brain at a time so the other can stay alert, ready to breathe, ready to surface. Some sleep while drifting, others rest vertically, suspended like shadows. Always, though, one eye is slightly open. One part of the mind listens. The breath must never be forgotten. And this makes their world one of awareness, of intention. Every dive is planned, every surface anticipated. There are no accidental breaths, only choices, only moments taken with care. And when they sing, it is a gift, not just of voice, but of air. We too live by breath, but we forget it. We rush, we speak without pause, we fill silence without meaning. Whales remind us that breath can be sacred, that to pause is not weakness, that silence is part of the music. They live in a state of constant relationship with breath, not fear but reverence. And perhaps that's why their songs move us so deeply, because they carry within them the echo of this rhythm. Inhale, descend, sing, return. The breath between songs is not empty. It is full of life. Now, let us rise with the whales, not hurried, not gasping, but slow and sure, drawn upward by the memory of breath. The ocean loosens its grip, light begins to return, and somewhere above the surface waits. It is the place where song begins again, but before that moment, there is stillness. The whale floats near the top, the last of its dive dissolving from its body. And then, with perfect calm, it exhales. The breath leaves like mist, warm against the cool air. In that brief fountain of vapour, a story ends, and another begins. The lungs fill again, the cycle continues. And yet, it is never quite the same. Each breath carries something new. The echo of the deep, the rhythm of the past dive, the lessons of pressure and silence. It is this return, this coming back to breath, that defines their lives. Whales, who spend 90% of their time submerged, always come home to the air. They are not of the sea entirely. They are not of the sky either. They live between. They are the bridge. And in their every surfacing, they remind the world, life is not made of constancy, but of rising and returning, of letting go and beginning again. The breath in this way is more than necessity. It is ceremony. A whale surfaces not simply to survive, but to reset, to listen again, to realign. In that one moment, when the blowhole opens and the mist rises, the whole ocean seems to pause. It is a quiet exhale the world can almost hear if it listens close enough. Their bodies are built to remember this cycle. Their muscles contract and release with rhythm. Their bones bend, not break, with depth. Their blood flows with purpose. Even their hearts know when to wait and when to resume. It is a system tuned not to control, but to surrender, to move with the sea, not against it. And through it all, breath remains the guide. Some whales, like the grey whale, migrate farther than any other mammal. thousands of miles from Arctic to equator and back again. They do this with no rest stops, no safe harbours, only the sea and the memory of their route. Along the way they dive and rise, each breath a marker of progress, each surfacing a compass. They navigate not with maps, but with lungs. Even as they sing, breath continues to shape them. Some songs are brief, moments of humming in the shallows. Others last for hours, stretched across the dark like threads of silver. But all of them are born from air. The blowhole closes, the chest tightens, and the sound emerges, pushed through folds, through resonance chambers, through the body itself. We have seen whales pause their songs to breathe, then resume as if they never stopped. They remember the rhythm. They know the phrasing. It's as if the breath is not an interruption, but a beat, a silence that belongs. And this, the way they move through silence, may be their deepest gift. Whales do not fear the pause. They do not fight the need for stillness. They embrace it. They let it shape them. They do not sing through the silence. They sing with it. In this they teach us something quiet and powerful, that breath is not weakness, but wisdom, that to stop is not to fail, but to wait, that each return to the surface is a beginning, not an end. And in today's world, where we often rush and fill and press forward without pause, the whales offer a different rhythm, one shaped by breath, by listening, by rising slowly. A rhythm that values what is not spoken as much as what is, that honours what cannot be held as much as what can. As scientists study whales, as their respiration, their capacity, their adaptations, they also find themselves humbled. The systems are elegant, efficient, deeply tuned. But beyond the data lies something more, a grace in how these animals live, not dominating the sea but existing within it, not mastering breath but partnering with it. And perhaps that's why their songs reach us the way they do, not just as sound but as reminders, that our own lives too are shaped by breath, that we too live in cycles of silence and speech, of descent and return, that we are not separate from this rhythm, only less aware of it. The whale with every breath remembers, and when it sings, that memory becomes music. So when you next hear their voice, recorded on the seafloor or echoing from a hydrophone miles away, know that each note has passed through lungs like yours, that it rose from a breath chosen, not taken, that it carries with it the shape of stillness, the depth of silence, and the wisdom of knowing when to pause, for the whale never forgets to breathe, and in that remembering it teaches the ocean how to sing. The sea, though vast and always moving, remembers. It remembers not with words or pictures, but with sound. In the ocean, sound is not just a way to communicate, it's a way to navigate, to trace paths, to carry memory from one body to another. For the whales who live in its depths, the ocean is not a blank canvas. It is a living map, shaped by echoes and vibrations, by songs passed down like trails in the dark. When we look at the ocean, we see openness, no roads, no signs, no borders. But to a whale, the sea is full of markers. Every trench, every ridge, every shifting current holds a voice. Sound bounces off the seafloor, curves around underwater mountains, bends with temperature and salinity. It changes shape depending on where it travels, and whales, born into this world of shifting acoustics, learn to read it. A calf, still soft and new, learns first by following its mother. Her voice leads it, gentle, steady, familiar. But over time, the calf hears more, the subtle echoes of familiar roots, the quiet resonance of feeding grounds, the way the ocean feels different in each place. These sounds become internal landmarks, like invisible pins on a memory map. It is not just echolocation, it is something wider, a whole sensory experience of place, a way of knowing not by sight but by tone. Sperm whales, who dive to the deepest parts of the ocean, make sharp clicks that bounce off distant surfaces. These echoes return with details, the slope of a canyon wall, the flutter of prey, the hollow space of an underwater cave. Each return is different. Each helps them build a mental image of the world. Not a flat image, but a living one. One they update with every dive, every pulse, every breath. But the map is not only personal, it is shared. Whale societies, especially among the great baleen whales, pass down songs that are rooted in place. A feeding ground in the Southern Ocean may be tied to a specific melody, a certain set of calls repeated year after year. These sounds, repeated and remembered, guide the young. They say, "This is where you return. This is where you belong." Some scientists believe whales may even use sound to measure distance, to feel how long it takes an echo to return, to sense how wide a bay or narrow a passage is. The ocean is their sky and sound is their starlight. With it, they orient not just geographically, but emotionally. Because some places are more than points on a map, they are places of memory. A mother gives birth in a warm lagoon. She hums to her calf there. Decades later, that calf returns, not because it remembers the way visually, but because the sound of the place lives inside it. A quiet underwater signature, carried across years. These soundscapes are subtle. A reef has its own hum. Ice groans in low, aching notes. The shifting of sand across the seafloor whispers in a pitch only some can hear. And whales, tuned by evolution and experience, gather these impressions the way we collect memories, each one layered on the next, until the ocean becomes familiar. This is why disruptions matter. When human noise fills the sea, from ships, drills, sonar, it doesn't just create loudness, it erases memory. It masks the echoes. It blurs the map. Whales who once swam clearly between seasonal homes now hesitate. The notes are missing. The path feels wrong, but still they adapt. Some change their songs. Others wait for quieter moments. Some move their routes entirely. It's not easy. But their memory is not fragile. It is fluid. Like the sea itself, it bends. It finds a way. And so the ocean becomes a kind of library. Not of pages, but of pulses. Of stories not spoken, but sung. Whales move through it not as wanderers, but as keepers of history. Each journey adds another line to the song. Each return strengthens the rhythm. The ocean remembers because they do. In this world, memory is not stored in objects, but in breath, in call, in the shape of a song. A whale may not know the word for home, but it knows the way, not because it sees it, but because it hears it. And it follows the sound all the way there. Let us drift further now, deeper into the realm where sound shapes the world more than light ever could. In this world of shifting salt water, sound is the only constant. And memory for whales is not a picture on the wall of the mind, but a vibration that lives in the body. The ocean, vast as it is, becomes smaller through memory, through familiar tones, through the gentle recall of a path once swum. Some species of whales travel thousands of miles each year, yet return to the same feeding and breeding grounds with precision that seems impossible. There are no signs, no scent trails, no visible landmarks in the open sea, but there is sound, not only from themselves, but from the world around them. They recognize the acoustic signature of their journey, the pitch of certain currents, the harmony of water moving past ridges, the echoing quiet of deep-sea trenches. Over time, these sounds become markers guiding them through dark expanses. Memory for whales is not just about where, but is also about when. A calf hears the same melodies its mother sang when they first travelled together, and later, as it returns to those same waters, it sings too, echoing that memory not just for itself, but for the others who swim nearby. It is a form of continuity, a way of telling the sea, "I remember." And in that remembering, the sea responds. It becomes known again. Some pods, especially among humpbacks, develop songs that evolve slowly year by year, yet still contain phrases that stretch back decades. These musical patterns carry information about place, about community, about emotion. Scientists have noted that whales in different parts of the ocean sometimes pick up these songs and begin singing them too, as if learning a new dialect. The memory of sound travels across waters even when bodies do not. This is not just imitation, it is something deeper, a kind of shared memory, diffused across space and time, where culture becomes fluid. Whales do not write, they do not build monuments, but they pass along knowledge through breath and voice, through tone and timing, and those who hear it carry the echoes forward. The sounds of the ocean itself play a part in this memory keeping. Deep beneath the surface, in the so-far channel, a layer where sound travels extraordinarily far, whales position themselves to let their calls move across entire ocean basins. This natural sound highway allows their voices to stretch far beyond the range of sight or scent. A single song, shaped by a place, may cross continents, and with it, a piece of memory is shared. You can almost imagine a young whale, years into its first solo journey, Pausing mid-migration as a familiar song reaches its ears, it turns slightly, adjusts its course. The path has reappeared, not in vision, but in sound, in recognition. Even feeding is influenced by sound memory. The clicking pulses used by toothed whales to hunt are not random. They are fine-tuned, adjusted based on past experience. They learn which echo patterns lead to success, which depths yield certain prey. Over time, these lessons become instinct-like. But they begin as memory, trial and recall woven into rhythm. The most touching form of this sonic memory is found in family bonds. Mothers and calves develop unique contact calls, subtle and quiet, used only between them. These calls persist, sometimes for years. In larger pods, relatives may use variations of the same rhythm, identifying each other across distance. Whales may be separated for months or more, yet when they reunite, they sing in tones that reflect past meetings. It is not just a hello, it is a welcome back, a recognition of what has been shared. Some researchers believe whales remember specific individuals over decades. The sounds they make are like names, not assigned, but felt. And as their bodies grow, as their songs change, those names evolve too. They are dynamic reflections of life lived and remembered. But these systems of memory are delicate. Noise pollution disrupts this balance. The low, constant hum of ship engines, the high blasts of sonar, the clatter of construction, all of it clouds the sea's voice. Imagine trying to remember your childhood home by listening to the wind, but the wind is covered by traffic, machinery, shouting. That is what many whales now face. Their maps are being redrawn by interference. And yet, even in this changing sea, whales adapt. Some lower their frequencies, others sing louder. A few even alter their routes, but they do so with effort and loss. For each change made in survival, a piece of tradition may fade. Still, they keep remembering. They keep passing it on. A grandmother whale may swim with her daughter and granddaughter, guiding them not just by movement but by sound. She hums old paths, they echo back. Together, they learn, not only where to go, but who they are. In this way, sound becomes not only a map of place, but a map of belonging. The ocean is too large to memorize in full, but with each voice, each breath, each returning song, whales sketch pieces of it. And when those pieces connect, when the echoes align, they find their way home again. Because home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a sound you carry inside. Now imagine the sea as an old book, not made of pages, but of pulses, not written in ink, but in vibration. In this book, every wave is a sentence, every echo a whisper from the past. And the whales, with their long bodies and longer memories, are the readers and writers of its songs. They do not mark their stories with footprints or names carved into stone, but with sound that bends through water and time. This is how the ocean remembers, and this is how whales find their way. The journey is never just from one place to another, it is from one memory to the next. Whales pass through waters their ancestors swam centuries ago, following paths invisible to the eye but clear to the inner ear. A certain echo, a tone carried in the current, a faint song humming beneath the noise. These are not just sounds, they are directions, and also something more, reassurance, that the world still holds its shape. In the polar seas, ice shifts and groans with its own ancient voice. Whales there navigate by the rhythm of cracking floes, by the echoing ring of distant glaciers. To us, the sounds may seem random, harsh, but whales learn the difference. They remember the tone of a safe passage, the cadence of open water, the song of a melting edge. And when they return months or years later, they listen to hear what has changed. The map is never still, but the memory is alive. Even the seafloor plays its part. Underwater mountains and trenches sculpt the flow of sound, bending it like wind through valleys. Whales moving near ridges adjust their calls, bouncing them off stone and sediment. Some parts of the ocean hold a clearer voice, a longer echo. Others absorb sound in quiet silence. These contours, memorized across generations, become like soft borders, not walls, but gentle guides. In tropical shallows, coral reefs hum with the sound of life. Shrimp crackle, fish murmur, even plants shimmer with motion. A whale passing nearby may not need to see the reef. It hears its song. A place once fed in is remembered by the sounds of its inhabitants. When the reef thrives, it sings clearly. When it fades, so too does the music, and the whales notice. They adjust. They remember what was. In recent years, researchers have begun mapping the ocean not just with satellite and sonar, but with soundscapes. These acoustic maps reveal the richness of places not by colour or depth, but by vibration. And as they study the paths whales take, over vast distances, over decades, they find alignment. The whales are following sound corridors, memory lines built not by humans, but by the earth itself. Whales are not alone in this. Dolphins too remember the shape of their home bay. Seals follow the underwater echoes of cliffs and islands. But it is the whales who carry the greatest weight of memory, not just across one life, but across many. A matriarch may pass down a route, a feeding ground, a hidden place in the sea, to her young, and they in turn will remember. This is why losing elders in a whale pod is more than the loss of a body. It is the loss of a library. A living record of songs, of places, of dangers and havens. When a line of memory is broken, it cannot always be rebuilt. And still the ocean listens. Still some voices carry. We have heard humpbacks return to long-abandoned bays and sing old songs. We have watched blue whales cross shipping lanes to find the quiet of deep-water channels. We have seen orcas lead their young with clicks and whistles along the same curves of coast their ancestors followed. These are not accidents. They are acts of remembering. But memory is not always safe. In recent years, the sea has grown louder. Not with song, but with noise. Engines hum day and night. Sonar pulses sharp and fast. Oil drills thunder deep beneath the surface. These sounds do not just distract, they erase. They blur the edges of remembered paths. They cloud the tones of home. And so whales must adapt again. Some now sing louder, a few even at frequencies beyond what they once used. Others have shortened their songs or shifted the times they sing, waiting for moments of quiet. Some change routes entirely, avoiding once familiar places now filled with noise, but even through this disruption they continue. Because memory for them is not fragile. It is flexible, a living map drawn not in lines but in waves. Even when the path is hidden, the feeling remains, and it is this feeling, this acoustic instinct, that carries them forward. In the quietest parts of the ocean, their songs still stretch far. A low moan moving through the dark, a series of pulses echoing off distant slopes, a melody carried from mother to calf, from friend to pod, from present to future. Each call is both location and emotion. Each return is a reunion, not just with place, but with self. Because for the whale, finding home is not about being still. It is about remembering sound. And when they arrive, when the echo feels right, when the vibration hums through their bones in just the right way, they do not need to ask if this is the place. They already know. The ocean has sung it to them all along. Beneath the rolling skin of the ocean, where light dissolves into blue and depth stretches endlessly down, the world is shaped not by vision, but by sound. Here, in this deep cathedral of salt and silence, whale songs move like threads, invisible, persistent and powerful. They slide through water, curl around ridges, echo off unseen walls. These are not just sounds, they are forces. They live within the physics of the sea. Water, thick and heavy compared to air, carries sound faster and farther. A whisper beneath the surface can travel miles. A deep moan from a whale may reach another ocean. And this changes everything. In the deep, where eyes cannot guide and sunlight cannot stay, sound becomes the only way to map the world, to speak, to know. Whale songs, especially those of baleen whales like blues and fin whales, are low and long. So low, in fact, that humans cannot hear much of it without tools. These low frequencies are powerful. They do not scatter or fade quickly. They glide through the ocean's layers like silk, wrapping the sea in resonance. The SOFAR channel, a natural layer of water where pressure, temperature and salinity come together just right, becomes a path for sound to travel farther than almost anywhere else on Earth. Whales seem to know this. They descend into the channel, position themselves within its depth and sing. Their voices catch the current of acoustics and ride it. Some songs have been recorded travelling over 10,000 kilometres. No wires, no satellites, just water and sound. But how does the song begin? Inside the whale there is no voice box like ours. Instead, whales use folds of tissue near their blowholes, sometimes deep within their heads, to produce vibrations. These vibrations are amplified through fat-filled chambers and bones. The skull itself becomes part of the instrument. The body becomes the sound. The sounds are not random, they are shaped, adjusted, controlled. A blue whale may begin with a low note deep and steady, like a bell rung from inside the earth. Then a pause, then another note slightly different. Over minutes, a pattern emerges. It repeats, builds. This is not instinct alone, it is design. It is structure. There are rhythms, phrases and variations. There are rises and rests. Some songs follow strict patterns. Others evolve over the seasons. And what's most remarkable is that different populations of whales across entire oceans may sing the same song, only slightly altered, like different choirs singing variations of an ancient hymn. The physics of the sea affects every part of this. Cold water makes sound travel faster. Salty water carries it differently than fresh. Depth compresses it. Whales, it seems, adjust without thinking. They know that a note sung at one depth will sound different at another. They know that a call made during a storm will bounce and scatter, while a call in still water will glide smooth. And so they shift. They shape their voices to the sea. The echoes tell them stories. A call that returns quickly tells of nearby walls. A fading echo speaks of distance. A distorted return may signal something new, a canyon, a ship, another whale. Through these returns, whales see the world with their ears. The ocean becomes a shape, a texture, a living geometry built from echoes and intervals. Even the silence is part of the system. Between calls, whales wait. They listen, not with impatience, but with focus. They hear the space their songs move through, and in that space they find others. A distant reply, a chorus in the distance, a pulse, faint but familiar. This is not shouting into the dark, it is speaking into a known and responsive world. When humans first began to study these songs, we treated them like puzzles. We charted frequencies, we measured intervals, we turned the notes into graphs, into waveforms, and what we found was extraordinary. Some whale songs have more structure than human music. There are repeating stanzas, motifs, call and response sequences. A song may last for 20 minutes, then start over again, with tiny, deliberate variations. This is not noise, it is art. And yet the purpose remains partly hidden. Is it a mating call, a social signal, a navigation tool? Likely all of these, but perhaps something else too, something simpler, more primal, a joy in vibration, a need to fill the vastness with something that belongs. What we do know is that whales don't just make sound, they inhabit it. They create waves inside waves. They turn physics into poetry. In this way, their songs are born not only of biology, but of the ocean itself. The temperature, the pressure, the salinity, all of it shapes what is possible. The whale does not fight this. It works with it. Like a violinist adjusting to a new room, the whale listens first. Then it plays. The deep sea where these songs are strongest is not spoutant, but it is slow, thoughtful, filled with long pauses and longer echoes. And within this quiet the song stretches, not hurried, not afraid, but calm, confident. It moves through the sea like light through stained glass, slow, sacred. And when another whale hears it and answers, the ocean becomes more than space. It becomes a conversation. Let's follow the song as it moves. Through currents and caverns, beneath layers of warmth and cold, it continues without hesitation. A sound made from breath, from bone, from a lifetime beneath the waves. As it travels, it changes, not because the voice falters, but because the ocean itself moulds it. This is the nature of sound in water. It is both a message and a mirror. It carries not only the voice of the whale, but the shape of the sea it moves through. Water is nearly 1,000 times denser than air. That density makes it a better conductor of sound. But it also changes how sound behaves. It bends, it lingers, it wraps around corners. Unlike in the air, where sound rises and disappears, in the sea it flows. It can even become trapped between layers of temperature, ricocheting horizontally for hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles. This is why a whale's low call can be heard oceans away, not because the whale shouts, but because the sea itself carries it like a thread. This remarkable movement of sound is why some of the oldest whale calls, once thought to belong to isolated groups, are now recognized across vast distances. A blue whale in the Indian Ocean may sing a note that resonates with another in the Pacific. The call is not identical. It is adapted, tilted, but the root is shared. And when the second whale responds, it does not only answer the voice, it answers the space between them. This space, fluid, mutable, endlessly deep, becomes part of the conversation. When whales sing, they are not only making sound, they are measuring the sea, the delay of an echo, the absence of a reply, the way a note bends in current. All of it tells them something. They can sense if a seamount is nearby, if ice is above, if a distant pod is on the move. They can even sense the size of a school of fish by the pattern of returned clicks. Their songs are not just signals, they are tools for reading the invisible. Some of this is echolocation, some is intuition, and some we still don't understand. We have watched whales stop mid-song as a ship approaches, their voices drowned by propeller churn. We have also seen them resume once the noise has passed, almost as if they remember the point in the song they had reached. This suggests memory, not just of melody, but of intent. The song is more than a sequence. It is a story being told across distance and time. Young whales learn to shape these sounds slowly. Calves mimic their mothers, beginning with short, uncertain notes. At first, the tones are clumsy, too sharp, too brief, but over weeks, then months, the pattern strengthens. The calf begins to match pitch, then rhythm, then structure. This learning is not passive, it is active listening, repeated practice. It is how culture forms, not through words, but through breath and vibration passed from one body to the next. And though we use instruments and graphs to study these sounds, what remains most impressive is the internal compass each whale seems to hold. They do not rely on machines. They do not need training. Each body, vast, curved, graceful, is tuned to its own frequency, like an instrument that builds itself around the music it's meant to play. Even different species use different frequency ranges. Blue whales favour long, low pulses. Humpbacks use more varied pitches, elaborate, shifting songs filled with rises, pauses and turns. Sperm whales click in tight rhythmic codas. Each of these patterns interacts differently with the sea. Some travel farther. Some are more directional. Some are better suited for shallow bays, others for the open deep. Whales seem to know this. They do not sing the same song in every place. A humpback in a quiet channel may stretch its notes longer, letting them echo. The same whale in a crowded region may tighten its phrases, make them sharper, more urgent. It adapts not only to who it is speaking to, but to where. This fluidity, this ability to adjust, respond, reshape, makes whale songs one of the most dynamic acoustic systems in nature. But like all systems, it faces change. The oceans are growing louder. Human noise intrudes where silence once lived. Engine rumble, seismic testing, sonar bursts. These do more than disrupt. They distort. A whale listening for a friend may instead hear the whine of steel. A song meant for hundreds of miles may vanish after only 10. In some cases, the whales fall silent. In others, they strain, raising the volume of their calls, shifting to new ranges. But there is a cost. Louder does not always mean clearer. It means effort, stress, and sometimes it means loss of contact, of connection, of song. Still, they keep trying, because the song is not only a tool, it is a bond, a way of saying I'm here, I remember, I belong. There is a kind of physics in that too, not of pressure or speed, but of emotion, the weight of persistence, the frequency of care. When a whale sings into a sea that no longer echoes the same way, it is not just sound, it is resilience. And when another whale answers, even faintly, even far, the line is restored. The map is redrawn. The conversation continues. Because physics is not cold, it is not distant. It is, at its heart, a description of how the world holds together. And in the deep sea where light cannot reach, whales hold their world together with sound. There is a silence in the sea that isn't empty. It is the quiet between notes, the pause after a call, the waiting space where answers might come. It is here in this stillness that the physics of whale song finds its final form, not just in how sound travels, but in why it matters. Because the ocean is not just a place of movement, it is a place of listening, and sound here is the thread that weaves everything together. We've measured the speed of sound in seawater, roughly 1/500 meters per second, 4 times faster than in air. We've mapped how it bends, how it refracts through thermoclines and haloclines, how it drifts upward or downward depending on density. We've calculated how deep it can reach, how far it can echo, but none of these numbers can explain what it feels like when a whale sings. When the note rises not from a throat but from a body shaped by the sea. When it touches another across miles of water and something unspoken passes between them. This is where the science gives way to something softer. The laws of acoustics remain unchanged, reliable, but the meaning of those vibrations becomes more than physics. It becomes communication, intention, memory. Whale song reminds us that nature is full of intelligence not bound by words. A low moan across the abyss may say, "I am here." A patterned click may mean, "Follow me." A rising tone repeated at dawn and dusk might be a name, a warning, or even a greeting. These meanings aren't fixed, they evolve. The song changes as the sea changes, as the whales move, as they grow. We've observed this clearly in humpbacks. Over a single season, their song can shift, a note added here, a phrase dropped there. Within years, entire populations sing a new melody, yet traces of the old remain, buried in rhythm, in structure. Like sediment on the seafloor, the past is never far. Each population tends to develop its own version, a kind of dialect, a regional signature shaped not by geography alone, but by shared experience. When two groups overlap, sometimes the song blends. A fusion, a negotiation in sound. This exchange is slow, elegant, almost democratic. There is no conflict, no shouting for dominance, just listening, adjusting, absorbing the new. It's hard not to see a lesson in that. If we listen long enough, carefully enough, what we hear in these songs is not just biology or mechanics, but collaboration, patience, even grace. The physics that allows sound to move through water becomes the foundation for an art that connects minds. When sperm whales dive to hunt, they click, but they also codify, forming patterns that seem to represent family, identity, role. The rhythm of clicks is sometimes repeated exactly between close relatives. When a calf clicks for the first time in its mother's presence, the clicks mirror hers. It's more than echo, it's inheritance. In the deepest waters, where pressure crushes metal and sunlight has never fallen, the only voice is vibration. A whale's call in this place is not lost. It is caught by the water, held, passed along like a secret. Some of these calls may travel undetected for days before another ear receives them, but they do arrive, because the ocean is not still, it is a vessel, and sound here is never without a path. Even as the sea warms, even as the noise of ships and drills swells, some parts of the ocean remain quiet. Deep mid-ocean basins, polar channels, undersea valleys, places where, if you stop, you can hear the faintest call ripple through the dark. In these sanctuaries, the whale's voice is still whole. The patterns are crisp, the pauses are meaningful, and there's something beautiful in this, that after everything, after centuries of listening and changing, the ocean still carries these voices. The sea does not forget them, nor do the whales forget how to make them. Their bodies, after all, are built for sound, their bones transmit vibration, their skulls amplify low tones, their lungs fuel long notes, their minds remember patterns, sometimes for years. A whale may swim alone for months, and when it hears a familiar song again, it answers without hesitation. The connection is immediate. It never truly left. Perhaps this is the secret, not that sound travels so well in water, but that meaning does. A whale song is more than a vibration. It is a continuity, a thread from past to present, a bridge not just between whales, but across time. We may not know what the words are, but we know what they do. They hold families together. They guide migrations. They shape cultures invisible to our eyes, but vibrant in the water. In the end, the physics of whale song teaches us more than equations. It teaches us that connection is not limited by distance or depth or even language. That something as fragile as breath, shaped by folds of tissue and released into the sea, can reach beyond what we see and touch another. And perhaps that's what song is, the purest form of reaching. A whale sings, not knowing if anyone hears, but it sings still, because the sound belongs in the sea, because somewhere far away another might be listening. And when that other hears and answers, the ocean does what it was always meant to do. It speaks, the sea hums with ancient music, and whales, though the singers of that deep world, do not just make sound, they become it. Their bodies are not only vessels for song, but instruments themselves. Inside them, vibration flows like blood. Their bones, curved and massive, are tuned to carry sound. And perhaps nowhere is this more beautifully felt than in the spine. We often think of bones as silent, rigid, still, buried beneath muscle and skin. But in whales, bones are listeners. They are transmitters. Their massive skeletons do more than hold them up. They sing with every call, every click, every note that rises from the depths. In water, vibration moves quickly. And when a whale sings, the sound doesn't just leave the body, it moves through it first. The voice echoes in the ribcage, it hums down the vertebrae. It rings in the skull like a bell in a hollow tower. This is not accidental. It is design shaped by millions of years of evolution, not just for motion, but for sound. In humans and other land mammals, ears catch vibration mostly from the air. But in whales, hearing is different. They do not rely on external ears. Their ear bones are encased in dense, thick structures in the skull, bones that pick up the subtle tremble of sound moving through water. But even before it reaches those bones, the sound has already passed through much of the body. Through fat, through tissue, through the spine. The spine, long and flexible in whales, becomes like a musical string, a conductor of tone. Each vertebra catches the ripple and passes it forward. And while we might imagine this as passive, whales feel it. They know the sound not only as something they make, but as something they inhabit. This is why some scientists now believe whales hear with more than just their ears. They may feel sound in their very bones. A low-frequency call, like those made by blue whales, can vibrate through kilometers of ocean, but it also vibrates inside the body of the whale that sings it. It is both an outward message and an inward experience. Imagine speaking and feeling your voice echo down your spine. Imagine hearing not just with your head, but with your entire being. This is how the whales know the sea, and it begins early. Even before a calf can sing, it feels. Inside the womb, it is surrounded by water, cradled in vibration. Its mother's calls, her movements, her heartbeat, all of it reaches the calf not as words, but as pulses. After birth, when it begins to dive and rise, it learns the shape of water by how it moves through the body. The calf doesn't simply memorize sound, it feels its way into song. In toothed whales, such as dolphins and sperm whales, this sensitivity is even more precise. These species use echolocation, producing rapid clicks that bounce off objects and return as echoes. But before those echoes reach the brain, they pass through the face, the jaw, the skull. The lower jaw especially is filled with fat that conducts sound, a kind of acoustic window. The signal travels through bone, arriving at the ears from within. It is a process both mechanical and deeply intimate. This blend of structure and sensation creates something extraordinary. A way of knowing rooted not in sight or even hearing, but in vibration. Whales map the world by how it feels to ring, the pulse of a seamount, the flutter of a school of fish, the distant call of another. All of it arrives through bones shaped to listen. We have barely begun to understand what this means. Whale bones are unlike ours in many ways. They are lighter, spongier, filled with oil-rich marrow that adjusts to pressure. But they are also resonant. They carry vibration in ways that are more similar to musical instruments than to the rigid supports we imagine in human anatomy. The vertebrae flex gently with movement. The skull amplifies like a hollow drum. Even the ribs move subtly with breath and sound, expanding and narrowing with each dive, each song. The whole body in this way becomes a listening chamber. This makes their songs more than tools. They are experiences. A blue whale's note may echo through its own body as deeply as it echoes through the sea. A sperm whale's click may be felt in the spine of another whale before it is heard. The sea becomes a resonant room, and the whales within it, both musicians and audience. And the music they make isn't random. Each species produces sounds shaped by the physics of its body. The size of the lungs, the length of the skull, the shape of the chest. These features define the notes that are possible, the depth, the pitch, the vibration range. In this way, the song is not just a cultural inheritance, but a physical truth. The body shapes the music shapes the experience, and both are carried in the bones. So when a whale sings, it is not just pushing air through a passage, it is awakening a whole internal architecture of sound. It is becoming the song it sends. Let us go deeper into this resonance, not just into the ocean, but into the body itself, where the music of the sea is not only heard but held. Inside a whale, sound doesn't pass like a breeze. It vibrates, it fills, it pulses through a body tuned to feel every shift, every rhythm, every echo. Their bones are not just structural supports, they are part of the conversation. And through them, the ocean's voice becomes physical. Whales do not sing from the mouth as we do. They produce sound internally, often within air sacs near the nasal passages. The vibrations made here travel through the skull, the throat, the chest, reverberating through cartilage and bone. These internal acoustics are shaped by anatomy, but also by the physics of vibration. In the dense medium of seawater, pressure transforms sound into sensation. A low note can ripple across the body like a slow wave. A series of clicks can travel like sparks down the spine. The experience of sound for a whale is whole body. A call is not only directed outward, it loops back in, rattling the ribs, humming in the vertebrae, reminding the whale of its own presence. In this way, whales may know themselves not by reflection, but by resonance. They do not need mirrors, they are reflected in their sound. Scientists studying stranded whales have been astonished by the size and complexity of their auditory systems. In many large whales, the ear bones, called tympanic bulla, are among the densest in the animal kingdom. These thick, shield-like structures help isolate and enhance underwater sound. But what fascinates researchers even more is how the rest of the skeleton participates. Vibrations do not simply stop at the ears, they continue, down the spine, across the ribs, into the very tips of the flukes. In a living whale, the entire body is engaged in listening. This is why whales are able to detect sounds from hundreds of miles away. A song sung by a distant relative may be received not as a whisper in the head, but as a full-bodied tremble, a shift in the whole posture of being. And even before the brain assigns meaning, the body already knows someone is near. We cannot easily compare this to human hearing. For us, sound is separate, external, entering through ears, interpreted at a distance. But for whales, the boundary between body and sound is blurred. They are immersed in it, surrounded, saturated. The ocean moves through them in waves they feel as much as hear. This experience shapes not only their communication but their identity. A young whale does not simply learn songs from others, it learns how to feel them. It listens through its bones. It memorizes not just tone but texture. The deep vibrations of its mother's voice become part of its sense of self. Years later, hearing that same tone again may spark recognition not as thought, but as sensation, a feeling in the chest, in the spine, in the space between vertebrae. And it is not just the individual that remembers. Groups, pods, even entire populations pass down sound traditions through generations. These are not merely notes or melodies, they are patterns of vibration. Ways of moving energy through bodies across time. When a whale sings an old song, it awakens sensations felt long ago, by others, in other waters, but carried still in the bones. Even death cannot silence these echoes. In whale skeletons retrieved from the ocean floor, traces of this vibratory life remain. The bones are marked by pressure, shaped by the slow pull of sound over years. Some show wear near the auditory structures, grooves where soft tissue once carried messages inward. Some vertebrae are polished smooth, where the muscles of movement and sound once stretched and hummed. These are not just bones, they are fossilized music. And while we cannot fully translate whale song, we can begin to understand what it feels like. In laboratories, scientists simulate low-frequency whale calls using underwater speakers. When played into a pool, the vibrations can be felt through walls, through feet, through bone. Even at low volume, they resonate. Deep, slow, steady. Those who have experienced it describe the sensation as grounding, almost meditative, a sound that doesn't enter the ear so much as settle into the body. This is why some researchers now believe that the emotional depth of whale song, its ability to express and receive feeling, comes not just from melody, but from this physical experience. A call that reaches the bones is not just heard. It is known. It is remembered in the tissue. It may also explain how whales navigate emotional connection. A mother calming her calf with a low, steady hum. Two long-separated whales finding each other across distance. A pod singing in synchrony, their bodies aligned by the rhythm. These are not abstract comments. They are vibrational alignments, a shared language of sensation. In this way, sound becomes more than a tool, it becomes relationship. And this relationship is fragile. Noise pollution in the sea disrupts not just hearing but feeling. It overloads the vibratory field. It fills the water with signals the body cannot interpret. Whales may fall silent not because they are unwilling to speak, but because their bodies cannot find space for the message. The bones, overwhelmed, stop resonating in the way they should. The song fades, not from memory but from imbalance. And yet there is resilience. Whales adjust. They lower their frequency, they wait for quiet moments. They move to deeper waters where sound still flows clean. They seek the conditions where their bodies can once again remember the music, where their spine can hum with what was once felt. Because to a whale, silence is not emptiness. It is potential, the space where vibration begins. And when they sing again, when the sound rises once more through bone and body and sea, it is more than communication. It is reconnection. The singing spine remembers what we've forgotten, that music is not just heard, it is held. Now picture a whale gliding through deep water, far below the tides and turbulence, where silence is thick and sound moves slowly, deliberately. With each movement, with each call, its body hums. The spine bends with the current, the ribs pulse with the rhythm of the lungs, and sound, rich, low, ancient, vibrates through bone. It is not a separate thing, it is not a tool, it is part of what the whale is. Every note that escapes into the sea echoes first within. This is what makes the whale's voice so powerful, not volume, not range, but depth. Depth in sound, yes, but also in experience. The whale sings from the bones, from a place beyond thought, beyond translation. A place where vibration and identity meet. We, on land, often imagine sound as something fleeting, a wave that leaves the mouth and disappears into the air. But in the ocean and inside the body of a whale, sound is presence. It stays. It surrounds. It fills. It changes the shape of the world. Even when a whale is silent, the memory of sound remains in the tissue, in the spaces between vertebrae, in the slight tension of muscle, the fluid in the joints. This memory isn't conscious. It is physical. A learned way of moving, of being, of responding to a world that speaks not in sights or scents, but in tremors and echoes. The bones remember, even when the ears forget. And so, when whales meet, they do more than greet each other. They align. Their songs may be brief or long or nearly inaudible to our tools, but their bodies listen completely. Two whales swimming side by side can communicate with micro-vibrations. Tiny modulated movements pass through the water, barely a sound at all. And yet it is enough. Enough for meaning. Enough for recognition. Enough to feel seen. In moments like these, the ocean becomes more than environment. It becomes a shared body, a space where whales synchronize breath and beat and movement without needing to speak in any way we recognize. Their bones resonate together, and in that shared resonance, something ancient stirs, a trust, a bond, a continuation. There are recordings of humpbacks singing in perfect unison for hours, their songs layered so precisely that the overlap feels intentional, like a duet practiced over years. And perhaps it is. Perhaps these whales, with bones shaped by evolution and memories shaped by experience, know how to align their vibrations not just by chance but by choice. This is music that goes beyond melody. It is communion. Whale skeletons, when examined closely, tell this story too. The grooves along the skull where fat and bone channel sound. The hollow chambers that amplify resonance. The flexibility of the spine that allows for precise motion and vibration without fatigue. These are not traits added for survival alone. They are traits of expression, signs of a life lived in vibration. The singing spine, then, is not metaphor. It is fact, it is design, and it is wonder. In recent years, acoustic researchers and biologists have tried to recreate the feeling of whale song using subsonic speakers. They play these low, slow tones into human bodies, into water tanks, into chairs fitted with transducers. And something remarkable happens. people report sensations of calm, of release, of connection. Some say they feel the sound in their bones, others feel as if they are floating. And while this does not make us whales, it gives us a glimpse, a faint echo of what it means to live in sound. It is a reminder that we too are built from water and rhythm, that our bones, though smaller, still carry the ability to vibrate, that perhaps, long ago, we too knew how to feel meaning without words. In this light, the whale becomes more than animal. It becomes teacher, not of facts, but of sensation, of how to slow down, how to breathe, how to know the world through touch that is not touch, through resonance that begins inside. And now, as their songs compete with louder waters, with sonar and storms of human noise, the importance of that internal music becomes clear. For even if the sea grows chaotic, the bones still remember peace, the spine still holds the memory of quiet. And when quiet comes again, between shifts in current, between machines, between pulses of interference, the whales sing. The vibration moves outward once more, through skin, through sea, through sky. And maybe, just maybe, it reaches another. Not just another whale, but another listener. One who feels, not just hears. Because the singing spine carries more than sound. It carries presence. It carries the knowledge that to feel is to be alive. And it carries the gentle truth that the world does not always speak in language. Sometimes it hums through your bones and waits for you to hum back. Beneath the surface where the ocean folds light into shadow, and the pressure of time presses soft against the skin, a song travels. It does not begin. It does not end. It simply flows, moving through currents, through species, through ages. This is not a song in the way we think of it. It is not written. It is not fixed. It is language made of water and breath, carried in the bodies of whales, shaped by the changing sea. It is a song without end. To call it language is to reach for something we almost understand, a shared system of meaning, of symbol and response. But the language of whales is not carved into letters or punctuated by silence. It is a continuum. One generation sings to the next. One pod echoes another. Notes drift from ocean to ocean, crossing decades, evolving gently, like waves smoothing stone. What we hear, the calls, the clicks, the moans, is only the surface. Underneath is a deeper structure. Repetition, variation, intention. The way a phrase returns with a slightly new inflection. The way a silence falls before a low rolling tone. The way one whale sings and another responds not with mimicry but with reply. This is not instinct alone. This is conversation. In humpback whales, this evolution is most visible. Their songs are long and layered, sometimes stretching 20 minutes or more, repeating patterns that gradually shift over seasons. What begins in one population can, over the course of years, ripple outward. Scientists have tracked these shifts like migrating birds, a new note appearing in the east, then heard further west months later, adopted and adapted as it goes. Each version is still the same song, but different, like a melody hummed by many voices, each with its own rhythm, its own breath. And yet the whales do not rehearse. There are no lessons, no practice sessions. The learning happens in the water, in the vibration, in the shared air before the dive. A young whale hears, remembers, repeats, then one day changes something. A pause, a twist in tone, and the others follow. This is not evolution as struggle, but as harmony. Not survival of the fittest, but survival of the most in tune. Language in this underwater world is not owned. It is shared. It is shaped by space and time, by distance and depth, by the feeling in a breath. It changes because the world changes, because the sea shifts, because new voices join the old. Even in sperm whales, whose clicks form structured codas, tight patterns of pulses, these sequences are not static. Pods share certain codas across regions, but also have unique rhythms of their own. These serve not just as identification, but as affiliation, a way of saying, I am of this group, I carry this history. The codas become like flags, not of territory, but of relationship. And though we are still learning what these patterns mean, we know they are learned, they are passed down, they evolve. This evolution is slow but constant, a gentle unfolding. One note shifting over time becomes a different note. One pause becomes a space for something new. One rhythm finds its echo in another. It is not correction, it is not error. It is life, finding new ways to express itself through sound. And the sea, ever receptive, carries each variation forward. The physical world shapes this evolution too. Water temperature affects sound speed. Salinity affects pitch. Even geography plays a role. Deep channels hold certain notes better than others, while shallow bays bounce sound in complex patterns. Whales, attuned to these conditions, adjust their songs without thinking. The environment speaks, and they answer. This is why a whale's language is inseparable from its world. It is not imposed, it is grown, it is not recorded, it is remembered, it is not taught. It is felt. And as the sea changes, as ice melts, as noise spreads, as currents shift, so too does the song. Sometimes in ways we do not yet understand, a sudden silence where there was once song, a new rhythm in a place where old ones faded. These changes are not random, they're responses, adaptations, choices made by voices older than memory. And still, through it all, the whales continue. They sing, not the same song, but a connected one that stretches from past to present, carried not in words but in presence, not in grammar but in breath, a song without end. Let's drift deeper now into the current of language, not the language of alphabets and rules, but one made of vibration, of memory, of shared breath through endless water. The ocean's oldest voices carry messages not etched in sound waves alone, but in the shape of their delivery, in how long a pause lasts, in how steady a rhythm holds, in the subtle way a call returns from rock or reef and is answered with recognition. Whales do not speak in syllables, they speak in sensation. Their language is not a static system, but a living, shifting presence, born from the world they inhabit. It is built on breath, but sculpted by time and place. And it has never stopped changing. The evolution of underwater language is not the story of invention, but of listening. Generation after generation, whales inherit patterns, not carved into stone or scripted in books, but carried in the songs sung to them. Songs made of frequencies that travel far beyond the range of human hearing. Some, so low, pass not only through water, but through the earth itself. Imagine being born into a world where communication flows around and through you constantly, not just as sound, but as energy, as movement, as resonance in your bones. The body becomes fluent before the mind can understand. Whales do not memorize songs like we do, they absorb them. The rhythm of speech is taken in like the rhythm of waves. They learn to respond without hesitation, without translation. This kind of language, fluid, sensory, ever-evolving, is less about command and more about continuity. In some ways, it mirrors how we once were, when human cultures passed stories not through written records but through voice, gesture, rhythm, and memory. But the whales have never moved beyond that. They never needed to. For them, the evolution of communication does not mean abandoning the old. It means weaving the old into the new. A mother sings a version of a song she heard from her mother. A pod adopts a variation learned from another pod. A calf adds a twist, and if it feels right, if it resonates, others follow. Slowly, song becomes language. Language becomes lineage. There is no leader, no blueprint, only shared awareness. Mutual shaping. This is most visible in humpback populations. Their songs migrate across oceans, not with individuals alone, but through influence. A new phrase born in one ocean can ripple into another, not immediately, but gradually, like sunlight reaching dusk. Whales seem to favour novelty that feels familiar, a new note that still fits. Change is embraced, but gently. It is curated by instinct. Some researchers compare this to cultural drift in human societies, when traditions slowly shift as they pass between hands and generations. But in whales, the drift is acoustic. It is not passed by word, but by resonance. In toothed whales, like orcas and sperm whales, the system is tighter. Clicks and coders, short bursts of structured sound, seem to serve as both identifiers and communication units. These coders vary by family and clan, sometimes staying stable over decades, even while others around them change. Yet even here, subtle evolution persists, a new rhythm introduced, a slight difference in spacing. Nothing stays still, but nothing moves too fast. This balance between consistency and change is what makes whale language so enduring. It adapts without rupture. It evolves without forgetting. And at its heart is an astonishing trait: shared authorship. No single whale owns the song, no one decides what it must be. It grows from many voices, braided together. A chorus formed over time. This is possible because whales do not speak to assert. They speak to connect. Their language is cooperative, not competitive. There is no need to dominate a conversation. To them, being heard is not about volume or persuasion. It is about participation, about harmony. And this harmony, this dynamic equilibrium, is shaped by the sea itself. Water is not a passive medium. It alters every call. It bends sound according to temperature, depth, salinity. A song that carries well in winter may falter in summer. A phrase that rings clear in shallow bays may distort in the open deep. Whales learn to listen to the sea first, to what it allows. Then they sing accordingly. This is a profound lesson. Language that does not force itself on the world, but moves with it. And as they move through this world, across vast migratory routes, through generations and continents, the whales carry their evolving language not only in their minds, but in their bodies, in the shape of their skulls, in the density of their tissues, in the way their lungs control air, even in the flexibility of their spines, allowing for subtle adjustments in pitch and rhythm. Their biology is the architecture of song. When a whale dies, its body sinks to the seafloor, but its voice may live on, in the memory of others, in the rhythm of the next generation, in the faint echo still travelling through some distant dark stretch of sea. A song without end is not one that never stops. It is one that is never fully lost. Even now, in a noisier ocean, whales adapt. They shift their frequencies. They time their calls to avoid ships. Some wait. Others move to quieter places. The language bends, but it holds, because the need remains, the need to connect, to continue, to remember. In this way, language becomes not only a means of communication, but an act of survival. Not survival as struggle, but as presence. To speak, to sing, to vibrate in tune with others, this is how whales remain who they are, even as the sea changes, even as the world forgets how to listen. But the whales do not forget. They speak, and the song carries on. Now let us return to the quiet, not the silence of nothing, but the gentle hush that waits beneath every sound. Here the whale's song lingers long after its last note, echoing softly through layers of salt and time. It doesn't stop. It fades, folds, flows, carried by currents, remembered by bodies, answered by others. This is the song without end, not because it never pauses, but because it never disappears. It becomes part of the ocean itself. In this final movement of their story, we begin to see whale language not as code or function, but as presence. It is how whales remain part of the world, not through dominance, not through permanence, but through continuation, through the willingness to return again and again to the water and shape it with voice. Language for whales is not fixed. It is alive. It grows the way coral grows, slowly layer by layer. By what is remembered and what is let go. A call may vanish. A rhythm may be lost. But the song continues because something new always begins. It is this constant renewal that makes their language enduring, not in repetition, but in resilience. Even as oceans change, as warming waters shift migration paths, as noise creeps into once quiet bays, the song finds a way. Whales do not stop speaking. They adapt their timing. They modulate their pitch. Some lower their frequencies to cut through the hum of ship traffic. Others raise their voices, straining to be heard. And some wait, not in silence, but in patience, for the sea to still. This persistence is not stubbornness. It is necessity. For whales, communication is more than expression. It is belonging. A calf learns who it is by the tone of its mother's hum. A pod knows where to move by the rhythm of old familiar coders. A lone whale, separated by distance, calls not just to be found, but to remind itself that it still exists in connection. Even solitude for a whale is part of the language. Some sing alone, their notes unfolding like stories spoken to the sea itself. These soliloquies may not always receive answers, but they matter, because they hold shape. because they hold space, because they offer continuity in the absence of reply. We humans often ask what these songs mean, but perhaps that's the wrong question. Perhaps the meaning is not in translation but in existence. A whale sings, and in doing so makes itself known. It adds its voice to a lineage that stretches beyond memory. It participates in a tradition that does not require understanding to be beautiful. To us, the sounds may seem strange, but to the ocean they are right. They are exactly what should be. The song without end lives not only in the voice, but in the ears that wait for it, in the tension of muscle that anticipates reply, in the slow spiralling motion of whales swimming toward a sound too distant to yet be clear. It lives in breath, in bone, in the long pause between two notes sung across separate lives. It lives in the echo, and perhaps it lives in us too. We are not as distant from these voices as we sometimes imagine. Our bodies, like theirs, are shaped by water. Our hearts, like theirs, beat in rhythm. We are built for listening, but we have forgotten how to hear without needing to label, forgotten how to feel without needing to name. Whales never did. Their song does not seek translation, it seeks connection, a weaving of vibration and awareness that stretches across oceanic space. It is not efficient, it is not exact, but it is true. And that truth is carried in every note that rises from the deep, whether anyone is listening or not. Because a song does not end when it fades, it ends when it is forgotten. And whales do not forget. They carry the memory of sound in their blood. They carry the evolution of language in their breath. And they offer it, without condition, to a world that rarely understands but sometimes quietly listens. So let this be that moment. A pause, a breath, a space held open. The whale sings, its voice rides the dark, its song changes again, as it always has, as it always will, not seeking an end, but simply continuing. Far below the crashing waves and tides pulled by the moon, the ocean flows in slow, steady currents, rivers within the sea, invisible but powerful. These currents do not rush, they drift. They twist around continents, dive below layers of warmth and stretch across hemispheres without end. They carry more than salt, more than temperature, they carry memory. To the human eye, the sea may look formless, an endless blue with no shape but surface. But to the whales, the fish, the drifting plankton, the ocean is full of lanes, corridors, highways made of the motion. These aren't written on maps, they are written in the water itself. Each current has a temperature, a salinity, a rhythm. The Gulf Stream, for example, carries warm water from the Caribbean up along North America and across to Europe. The Antarctic circumpolar current wraps around the bottom of the world like a great blue belt. Deep beneath these flows, colder, denser currents slide slowly through trenches and valleys, forgotten by light, but never still. The ocean remembers where it has been. When water moves, it changes. It absorbs minerals, heat, chemicals, even whispers of sound. These changes don't vanish. They stay with the current, carried like a story. A pulse of warmth from a distant sea, a scent of iron from a seafloor vent, a trace of fresh water from melting ice. These become part of the current's identity, a fingerprint left on the waves. And animals, especially whales, seem to know this. A migrating blue whale doesn't just follow temperature, it follows the feel of water, the way the salinity presses against the skin, the way certain depths hum with distant vibrations. It remembers where the water once took it, not in a conscious way, perhaps, but in the deep inherited rhythms of breath and bone. Plankton too respond to these paths, not by choice but by design. They ride currents like leaves in the wind, drifting upward or downward as needed. Along the way they feed fish, who feed larger fish, who feed everything else. The current is not just a conveyor, it is a life source. But it is not a simple machine. It moves with complexity and grace. One part of the ocean heats in the sun and rises, another cools and sinks. Winds press against the surface, spinning gyres that twist slowly like sleeping giants. The earth itself, rotating beneath, nudges the currents with a soft hand. All these forces, wind, heat, salt, spin, create a dance of motion that never truly stops. And just like music, this motion carries a rhythm, a kind of language, spoken not in words but in waves. Some scientists believe the ocean's motion is a kind of memory system, that it stores past conditions and slowly releases them over time. A layer of warm water from last year might still influence currents today. An old plume of cold water might rise again in a distant sea, shaped by wind and waiting. This memory isn't stored in thoughts, but in structure. When a whale swims through a familiar current, it may feel something known. Not from sight, not from smell, but from the shape of the water itself, how it folds around the body, how it echoes sound, how it carries light. The ocean touches everything in motion, and in this way the water learns, not like we do, not in language, but in temperature, in pressure, in salinity, in sounds. This memory isn't perfect, it shifts, it adapts, but it holds just enough to keep the system alive, to guide migrations, to steer storms, to feed coral, to shape climate. Oceanographers map these memories with satellites and floats, but the creatures who live within them don't need data. They feel it, they respond. This kind of knowing is ancient, older than maps, older than ships, older than whales even. It's the memory of the planet itself, moving in endless fluid thought. A memory carried forward by emotion, a silent current speaking in waves. Let's go deeper now, into the layers beneath the waves, where motion becomes more than movement, where each current carries not just water, but a memory of where it has been, a history written not in ink or sound, but in temperature, salt and pressure. These layers of water are invisible to the eye, but they are as real as any path across land, and they are remembered by the ocean, remembered by the life that drifts through them. The uppermost layer, touched by wind and sun, is lively and quick. It changes with seasons, storms and sky, but below it deeper waters move more slowly. They carry the cold of ancient winters, the minerals of underwater ridges, the silence of places never seen by light. Some of this water sank hundreds of years ago near the poles, cold, dense and heavy. It began its journey then and is still travelling now, slipping through basins and sliding beneath warmer flows. This is the deep ocean conveyor, a slow global circulation that connects all the seas of the world. Scientists call it the thermohaline circulation, driven by temperature and salinity. Warm, salty water from the equator moves toward the poles. Cold water from the poles sinks and returns, hugging the bottom. It's a great loop that takes centuries to complete. A single droplet of polar water might not return to the surface for 1,000 years, and yet when it does, it brings memory with it. These upwellings, where old water rises, carry nutrients from the deep. They feed entire ecosystems. Phytoplankton bloom, fish gather, birds circle, whales return, and the pattern begins again. It is a kind of breathing, the planet's inhale and exhale pulled through by motion. The surface gives energy, the deep gives memory. Together, they balance life. Whales seem to sense these shifts. Long before we could measure them, before satellites or buoys, whales adjusted their migrations. Some turned earlier, some stayed longer. Their decisions matched the unseen pulse of the water, not by chance but by familiarity. They felt the changing current in the temperature brushing their skin, in the pressure on their lungs, in the way sound echoed back differently through shifting layers, because water, as it moves, also holds sound. And sound in the ocean is a kind of touch. It bends, slows, and reflects differently through each current. Whales may recognize old paths by the shape of the echo alone. A known canyon has a certain voice. A remembered current sings in a certain pitch. Even silence in one place can speak of presence or absence. Currents carry other things too, dust from deserts swept into the sea, melting ice from distant glaciers, microscopic life drifting for thousands of miles. All of this becomes part of the current's identity, and every creature within it, from jellyfish to whale, swims through this slow inheritance. In a way, the ocean becomes like a memory palace. Each corridor of water holds information, not locked away but constantly shared. As animals move through it, they read the layers with their bodies. A shark senses shifts in salt. A turtle rides thermal gradients. A whale interprets the feel of the sea as a kind of story. And so movement becomes knowing. Some fish spawn only when certain currents arrive. Coral release their eggs when the temperature hits a precise value. Even the smallest plankton time their growth to the rise of deep water. These patterns are not guesses. They are responses to an ancient system, one that remembers what came before. The ocean, in this sense, does not forget. It carries the breath of the past forward, as heat, as cold, as chemical trail. A current that once brought life may bring it again, or warn of change. Today the shape of these currents is shifting. As the planet warms, the balance of heat and salt changes. Some currents weaken, some stray. The memory of the ocean begins to blur, and with it the rhythms of life change too. Some whales arrive too early, some stay too long. Coral that once bloomed in harmony with upwelling find the signal missing. The song of the sea is being altered, not silenced but confused, but not forgotten, because the ocean, vast and deep, still holds what it has always held, the capacity to adjust, to renew, to relearn its shape. The currents do not stop, they slow, they meander, but they still move, and as they move they carry forward what they can. Old knowledge, stored cold, minerals from the deep, stories told in silence. Whales, fish and birds still follow, perhaps uncertain, but still trusting that the sea will speak again. That motion will return to meaning, that memory will rise once more from the deep, and that the current, quiet, unseen, will carry it gently, endlessly onward. Somewhere in the middle of the sea, far from shore and farther from sound, the water moves, slowly, steadily, as it always has. There are no walls to guide it, no signs to explain its path, but still it flows, and as it flows it remembers. This memory is not written in words or marked on charts. It is carried in the weight of the water itself, in the temperature it holds, the salt it gathers, the particles it touches and brings along. It is a memory that breathes, changes, drifts, but never disappears. In this way, the ocean becomes more than a body of water. It becomes an archive, a living record of motion, a record without boundaries, stretching from the surface kissed by sun to the trenches buried in blackness. Each layer holds a story, each current carries a message, not always understood but always present. Even as the world above changes, as coastlines shift, as ice retreats, as storms strengthen, the deep water moves with quiet persistence. Its voice is not loud, but it is steady. Its rhythm is not fast, but it is constant. And life continues to follow. Whales dive into these currents as if returning home. They do not see the lines we draw on maps, but they feel the paths. A blue whale leaving the Antarctic may follow cold tongues of water all the way to the equator, its skin sensing every shift. It doesn't need a compass. It needs only the shape of the sea, the remembered touch of pressure, of motion, of flow. Other creatures do the same. Tiny eel larvae born in one ocean cross entire continents, following deep currents to reach their ancestral spawning grounds. Turtles find their way back to beaches they left years before, not by sight, not by luck, but by swimming through water they remember, a chemical trail, a thermal shape, a memory built into the body. Even the ocean itself remembers how to move. When disrupted, it finds its way again, like a song paused mid-note, only to resume in a new key. Currents that vanish reappear, new ones form, the sea rearranges, always seeking balance. This resilience, this adaptability, is its wisdom, but there is fragility too. In recent decades, the balance has started to shift more rapidly. Ice that once cooled and sank now melts and lingers. Warmth that should rise remains trapped. The great conveyor slows, weather patterns grow strange, rain falls where it shouldn't, drought lasts where it never did. The memory begins to unravel, like a book with missing pages, and yet even in this disruption, there is hope. Because water never forgets how to move, it simply needs time to remember. The planet, like the ocean, holds knowledge deeper than we often see. Currents may weaken, but their paths still exist. Upwellings may fade, but the nutrients remain. And the animals who live by the sea's rhythm, the whales, the plankton, the great schools of fish, still search, still adjust, still follow the whisper of what once was. The key lies not in forcing the ocean to return to what it was, but in listening, in letting the memory surface gently without rush, in protecting the places where currents are born, the poles, the deep channels, the boundary waters where salt and cold first meet. These places are not just geographical points, they are cradles of memory. They are where the song of the sea begins again. Because the current is not just water, it is a cycle, a breath, a message sent from one place to another, across generations, across species, across time. When it falters, The whole song feels different, but when it flows, life aligns. A whale sings into the deep, and the deep carries the note further than any cry on land. A nutrient drifts upward, and a bloom begins that feeds 1,000 lives. The sea does not speak quickly, but it always speaks, and the current is its voice. The silent current teaches us that movement is not chaos. It is memory made physical, a memory that bends but does not break, that adapts but does not vanish, that remembers not for itself, but for all who travel within it. We are part of that journey, too. Our breath, our weather, our water all connect to these flows. We live by the sea's motion even when we cannot see it. The rain on our roofs, the warmth in our winters, the food on our tables, all touched by a journey that began deep in the ocean's heart, long before we arrived. So let us learn from the water, to move with grace, to remember with gentleness, to carry forward what matters, because the current continues, and in its flow the ocean never forgets.